on Monday night. I thought maybe as a way to reflect on this, I would go over some things I know about visualizations for large data because I thought it was interesting that we looked at a graph that I thought was kind of bad at the end of class the other day. Bad not in the sense that we looked at it, but that it didn't convey much information. So looking at the screen I have in front of me, it's something like this chord diagram here. So all these visualizations that I have up on my screen come from D3, which is actually a tool using JavaScript to do data-driven graphing. So basically, you can create graphs that are dynamic as you're gathering data. They change consistently. So probably a lot of very familiar looking graphs, like we got a node graph here. We have the bubbles. I think there's Wordle or whatever you call those things. Yeah, I think Wordle's somewhere around here. Yep, or word cloud. Here you go. Yeah, so a lot of different things to consider, and I imagine we're going to learn about a lot of different tools to make graphs that look like this that might be easier than D3, which has quite a steep learning curve, especially if you don't know JavaScript yet. Okay, so now having looked at a bunch of graphs that might be helpful for as templates for how to convey information, I would like to go over a variety of graphs that I think are helpful or not helpful. So first off, here's a graph that I have looked at a variety of times for a research project I'm doing. It's kind of a creative project. I'm actually writing a novel, and a lot of it has to do with technology. So this is all of the different band gaps for who owns what space and frequency in the air for different radio streams. It's a really interesting one, and you find out actually that the military and government own quite a bit of our airspace, but when you get down here, it's a lot more broadcasting that is privately owned companies and stuff than otherwise. It's mostly the low frequency stuff. But that's besides the point. For the graph itself, it's a very straightforward representation. If you want to learn about frequencies, it doesn't necessarily teach you anything about them per se, what they are, what it means to have purchased a part of this frequency, but it's a straightforward representation of content to visualization. Not necessarily much you can abstract from it. So this is kind of, I would say, like a low-level graph, just meeting the requirements of showing a user something that you're interested in. So if I delete that, I'm going to go to this graph, which is a node graph of all of the philosophers on Wikipedia. So now I would say this is a little bit better as far as content you can abstract from it than the graph before. So the graph before, just showing you kind of what you came here for. Whereas this graph, maybe you can actually learn something. It took all of the Wikipedia references under philosophy people and then found who they were influenced by, and then the nodes are bigger based on how many people were influenced by that person. So as expected, Kant, Aristotle, Plato, Nietzsche, Hegel, big. Marx, big. Wittgenstein, maybe getting bigger. Chomsky, kind of small. Quine, kind of small. Davidson, kind of small. And then, people like Wilfrid Sellers, who I love, but no one knows of, very small. But you can learn something about this graph, but it doesn't necessarily do much more than like an echo chamber does. We know this landscape. We can't learn anything from it, but for someone who doesn't want to do all the research into these philosophers, it can help them see something. Okay, so then I'd found this page on 70 Best Infographics, where I was looking for the Feltron annual report. Nicholas Feltron is a guy who worked for Facebook, and he does this set of graphs every year where he asks people to do surveys, people who are on Facebook, about where they are, what they're doing, what they're wearing, and they try to fill them out every day. So you can see here is the responses, what time of day people tend to be responding and reporting. Here's some information about the responses, like how many words people tend to use for the different responses they're being asked for. What are you wearing turns out to be the one that people give the most information on. So, and then what are you doing has the most unique words indexed for the database that he stored all of the survey questions for. What are you doing? So this we can learn a little bit about people's habits. It's not just something that we knew prior. Sorry, my cat is going in the background. And finally, I'd like to say then there's the kind of graph that makes an argument full out. It's not just something you can learn a little bit from, speculate on. This graph was done by a guy who writes the XKCD comic, and what he did was graphed where all the known money is in the economy, and you can learn a lot through a graph like this by having really good comparisons available. For instance, like the worker to CEO pay comparison. Oh, this thing is flying all over the place. So you can see that workers only went up an average 10 cents an hourly wage from 1965 to 2007, whereas CEOs went up about $5,000. So yeah, so this is just a little overview of different kinds of graphs, what they're helpful for, limited graphs versus, exploratory graphs versus ones that are, maybe almost scholarly in merit, like this one where a variety of sources went into it and the infographic is actually building an argument. Okay, well, that's my reflection. I hope this is helpful. Thanks. Bye-bye.